Most Americans know the famous line, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." But the next phrase is just as important, that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. July 4th, 2026, the United States marks 250 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. This anniversary invites a simple but powerful question. What did the founders believe that caused them to create a nation conceived in liberty? Stay with me to find out how the answer dovetails with the Old Testament topics usually discussed on this channel. On this channel, I talk about issues related to my research for my biblical historical fiction series, Age of the Kingdom. 3 books in the series are available now at GaryIvey.com so far. But in this video, I wanted to acknowledge the 250th anniversary of the independence of the United States of America. It's a really big deal, and believe it or not, it can be related to the subjects I usually cover on this channel. I'm old enough to remember the bicentennial of the Declaration of Independence in 1976. I was newly married and just out of college in my first pastorate. I've always been a patriotic American in addition to being a Bible-believing Christian. Today, a lot of people claim the founders of the United States of America were not really Christians, but deists who mainly got their ideas from European Enlightenment philosophers like Locke and Blackstone. But is that true? The founders held a range of religious beliefs. Some, but not all, were Orthodox Christians. The idea that the founders were all deists, that is, believing in a God who set everything up then disappeared, is not true at all. Only a few of the 56 signers of the Declaration were deists. Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin were the most prominent. The majority of the others were believers who wrote extensively about their faith. To understand the founding era, we have to recognize how deeply the Bible shaped the moral language, political imagination, and public rhetoric of the American people. In the 18th century, the Bible was not a private devotional book. It was one of the most widely known texts in the culture. It was used in education, so everyone knew it very well. Its phrases, stories, laws, and moral assumptions were part of the shared vocabulary of public life. So when the Declaration of Independence speaks of a creator, the laws of nature and nature's God, the supreme judge of the world, and divine providence, it's drawing from a worldview in which moral law, human dignity, accountability, and liberty are not inventions of the state. They are rooted in a moral order that stands above the state. The phrase, endowed by their Creator, tells us 3 main things. First, human equality is created, not granted. People are equal because they share a common origin under God. Second, rights are inherent, not permission-based. If rights come from the Creator, government cannot legitimately erase them. And finally, government is accountable. The purpose of government is to secure rights it did not create. This was a revolutionary claim at the time. In older political systems, rights depended on class, crown, bloodline, or privilege. The king and priest had divine rights, which they could grant or deny to the people. But the Declaration says all people possess rights because all people are created in God's image. Moral law is above human law. Rulers are accountable to justice, and liberty is tied to responsibility. The founders were human like you and me, so they did not always live up to these principles. The nation's history includes profound contradictions, especially slavery. But the Declaration supplied a standard by which later generations could challenge those contradictions. Scholars who study founding era political writing have noted that the Bible was cited more frequently than any single European political thinker. The book of Deuteronomy alone was cited almost twice as often as the entire body of John Locke's writings, according to one survey of political literature from 1760 to 1805. That matters because modern Americans often assume the founding was explained almost entirely by Enlightenment philosophers such as Locke, Montesquieu, and Blackstone, as well as English constitutional tradition. But the Bible was a dominant source of language and moral reasoning in the world the founders inhabited. John Adams, one of the signers and second president, referred to the Bible as the most Republican book in the world. When Adam used the word Republican, he was not talking about the modern political party. He meant a Republican form of government. Here's the complete quote. "The Bible contains the most profound philosophy, the most perfect morality, and the most refined policy that was ever conceived upon earth. It is the most Republican book in the world, and therefore I will still revere it. Without national morality, a Republican government cannot be maintained." It's important to note that the United States Constitution established a Republican form of government, not a democracy. We do use democratic processes to elect our representatives, but we, the people, do not directly vote on the laws ourselves. So those who refer to the United States as a democracy are either confused or they are creating confusion. Adams also famously said that the Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people and was wholly inadequate to the government of any other. His point was that liberty requires moral self-government. If citizens cannot govern their own appetites, ambitions, and passions, then the external government must become stronger to maintain order with an accompanying loss of liberty. A constitution can organize a government, but it cannot create virtue. Laws can restrain evil, but they cannot produce character. For Adams and many of his generation, religion, and especially biblical religion, was one of the main ways people learned the habits necessary for freedom. The Constitution does not mention God like the Declaration does. Its purpose is to create a free country where the government has no role in the personal religious beliefs of the people. Article 6 forbids religious tests for federal office, and the First Amendment prevents Congress from establishing a national religion while also protecting the free exercise of religion. So there's a delicate balance. The founders understood both the importance of religion to public virtue and the danger of government coercion in matters of conscience. Their goal was to create a civil order where liberty of conscience could flourish and where religion could shape citizens and communities without their having been controlled by the state. In other words, in the American system, the government isn't supposed to have an opinion about religious faith, but the founders did not imagine that public life would be morally empty. The founders repeatedly spoke of providence, virtue, conscience, religion, and morality as necessary supports for liberty. George Washington warned that religion and morality were indispensable supports of political prosperity. Benjamin Franklin called for prayer at the Constitutional Convention, reminding the delegates that if a sparrow cannot fall without God's notice, an empire cannot rise without his aid. James Madison defended religious liberty because conscience could not rightly be coerced by the government. The founders were not identical in their theology, but they do show that the founding generation saw religion as deeply relevant to liberty, republican government, moral order, and the dignity of the human person. As America reaches its 250th anniversary, the question is not merely historical, it is moral and civic. If rights come from the government, then rights can be redefined or withdrawn whenever political power changes hands. But if rights come from the Creator, then government is judged by how faithfully it protects what it did not create. So as we remember 250 years since the Declaration of Independence, we should remember more than fireworks, flags, and founders. The central question of America's 250th anniversary is not only what did the founders believe, it is what kind of people must we become if we want liberty to endure for the next 250 years. If this video helped you think more deeply about America's founding principles, like the video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you next time for more stories from the age of the kingdom.